You're watching Hypno Heather. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. This is going to be a bit of a different video because one of the things that I told myself when I started posting more here was that I wanted it to be a space for me to unpack some of the events and the experiences that I have in my life and how that leads me to getting even more aligned with my purpose and what I'm here to do, both professionally and personally. And also hope that perhaps my story or my journey somehow supports or loves or gives you space for your journey and your growth as well. So there's a few different themes that I'm going to cover just because I'm going to talk about some of my experiences in the last week, even since my birthday and even since before Christmas. And some things that have become really clear to me, like around commitment and how once we truly devote or commit to something, we've got that support and that lift and that assurance and confirmation from the universe or source energy or providence. And this is the theme that's got me the most excited right now because I'm in the Creating the Impossible group with Michael Neal. I think this is maybe my third time, maybe. And this is just beautiful because it gets us back in the idea of like creating from uh to create ultimately. And then, of course, the things that come up and that we can explore and delight in along the way. Now, with this whole idea of commitment, I always find it really interesting talking about goals and success because as a hypnotist, people always come to me and say, help me reprogram me or deprogram me or make me different and so that I can accomplish this or so that I can achieve this. And one of those things is that it's not really necessarily a deprogramming. I mean, sometimes we might have to courageously face things that we have to see for ourselves or provide for ourselves in terms of like self-care or release. If there's something that we're always being triggered on or that we're not listening to in ourselves, I do believe that that can get in the way of, but I never see those things as like blocks. I never really see those things as like a negative part of a person or something that's bad and has to go so that they can be good or successful. I see it more as something that is asking for attention. And then if we're not listening, if our bodies keep saying like, oh, you need to stop eating that, or they're kind of every time you eat that, it feels bad, just as like a simple physical thing. And you don't listen, and you keep saying nah, 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 nah. It's like every time you say no to yourself, that's telling you get help for this or get support for this or stop doing that. If you can't stop doing that, get help to stop doing that. If it's really, really like something that yourself is telling you, do this, like you need to do this. And then every time you say, no, 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 then how are you going to hear the other stuff? Like, how are you going to hear the voice? I say it's the voice, but it's really yourself saying, like, you need this. You got to do this. Like, this is going to feel great, even if it's scary or if it's like feels like a block. But my question is always like, if you don't listen to that voice, then how do you hear the other voices? Like, how do you hear when the voice is saying, okay, take this step? Or like create this and put it out into the world or put yourself into here or make that phone call or reach out to that person. And this could still happen if you're not listening but you still listen. But really, the more that you listen to yourself, the more clear that intuitive voice is, and the more clear it's going to be telling you, okay, go here, do this. And then that's when the magic happens. that's when things line up. Or it might even be where you're just without necessarily knowing exactly why you're doing something. And this is, I think, what's truly beautiful about authenticity and about being ourselves and about having a little bit more trust in our intuition and in ourselves, that we don't have to force or push or convince anyone to do anything, because the right people will come to us when we're listening to ourselves and kind of staying in our lane. So that's kind of one of these themes that's really coming up for me, especially working with coaches and practitioners, and seeing how much they might have taken on from their industry in terms of like what they should be doing to be successful, and how these themes are often like so connected to like a specific outcome, like make 10K in 1 week, or make 100K in 3 months, or whatever it is. That's also often like what they're being sold to. And it's not that that's impossible, it's just that when the process is too set up and too focused to create the outcome, and it's too uh boxed in, it rarely leaves room for providence. Like, it rarely leaves room for divine timing, for an understanding karmically, or even say purpose drivenly, of like what that person came to this life to create, or to learn, or to heal ancestrally, or generationally, or even personally. And I think that that's where we get into problems, right? That's where the formula doesn't always work. And then people are like me, I'm a person too, so I've experienced this. Then we just procrastinate because it's not really lining up. It feels like we've got to do this to be okay, or we've got to do this to be successful, instead of looking at like, what if um we didn't? Not only what if we didn't, but what if we learned whatever we're learning and then applied it to something that is more in alignment with our purpose, right? Something that's more in alignment with what we came here to do. And I know that that might sound vague or even kind of cliche, but for me, I work in the subconscious, I work in the super conscious mind, which is like the higher self, with the all of the programming and, basically where you are, every experience that you've ever lived. And we find so much information, so much value, so much release, so much healing, so much raise of consciousnesses, if that's the way to say it, so much elevation with this type of work, because it does take into account purpose and karma, and how the formulas that are created for success only work if certain keys have opened certain doors to the person's path. And that's more how I think of a block. Like, I think of a block more as a door that can be opened to take a new direction. Like, we can keep going on our same direction and have the stuff that's still sticky for us, and like we just have to keep learning some things, or like keep expanding our knowledge around things, just like healing. When I was healing my asthma, there was like always another layer. There was always another thing that I found, that this is what they said would cure it. And it wasn't until like, it was literally a 26-year process. And now when I look back, I can see how, well, I had a lot to learn. What I learned through the journey of healing my asthma was what I came here to learn. And it wasn't a simple thing. It was a lifelong learning. it was a lifelong soul heart healing and evolving and stepping into my purpose and like healing myself and my and of course everything that it taught me to help others heal along the way, which I do believe was part of my purpose. Yeah, I know. I know this video could be many videos, but it's gonna be one, and I can always expand on themes that I'm talking about here in other videos, but I honestly just wanna say it all. I wanna get it out because, like, the world is just changing so quickly right now, and we're seeing things so clearly, so fast, and then there's more, and it's growing, and what an amazing time to be alive. And when we can come in with this like deeper understanding of where we know, okay, it's not that we have a block, it's just that there's a door that could be opened so that you can walk through it into a new existence, into a new reality, and into a new belief system. And this is like, I feel so blessed to like have had all the conversations that I've had this week. With my past life trainer, the woman that I'm bringing in to do the past life portion of the regression training that I'm offering for hypnosis practitioners, and also opening it up to other modalities as well. And you know, just the wisdom that I get from spending time with her name's Sarah, and the conversations that we were able to have around the wounded healer and the exiled healer, and this way that you know, we've learned to hold space for people's healing and growth while being humbled, you know, but while staying humbled and doing our own work and having to learn how to navigate and grow and transform through the events of our own lives, which is ultimately essential to being able to help others do that. And I mean, that's just one of the threads that we delve into, are going to delve into this regression hypnotherapy workshop intensive in March, because there's so many there's an aspect of change and transformation and healing that can only happen through regression, in my opinion. It's like the part of hypnosis that has like the most potent power, because it absolutely creates freedom from the past and unravels and unwinds those programming to be able to be more present, feel more comfortable, less tortured, less victimized by the stuff that you've experienced, the pain that you've experienced, because of that understanding of like what you came here to do. And I'm going to talk more about, I'll do a separate video on the regression hypnotherapy. I've been writing about it in my email list. I'll put the link to my email list if that's something you want to explore, because I just kind of want to go on to talk about my experiences. And like I had another conversation with a friend of mine who is really a pioneer in the Bitcoin space, Dale, and we were talking about how we love to geek out about like how Bitcoin is so has so many similarities, and he's like even listed this out. It's just amazing with like the work I do and kind of this subconscious and superconscious expansion of the way that the world is changing and shifting and becoming more autonomous. And you know how even just the whole concept of blockchain and like of Bitcoin is like reprogramming the subconscious around money and around corporations and around power and around so many things. And this is where, let's face it, like the revolution of the world right now is in autonomy and our ability to critically think. And as a hypnotist, I will put in there the ability to see through the way that we are being hypnotized to feel an emotion. And then once we feel an emotion, boom, you know, s- repeat the message, repeat the message, repeat the message, repeat the message. And even as I train my students in hypnosis, this is a big message. Like, one of the ways that we know that someone is can be hypnotized is through shock. So like even an instant induction is like boom, right? Like, this is not, obviously that's not scary, but it would be to like actually shock someone. Or like if you look at like a stage hypnotist that will be like shaking the person's hand and then pull it down, and like in that moment of shock, it's like go deeper. And I mean, I think that there's probably a bunch of themes in this video that I could come back to and divulge more. And if there is something that's popping up or like piques your interest as I'm talking about it, just pop it in the comments, and then I can, go more in depth into any of these topics. But coming back to that and this whole idea of like, it's a known hypnotic technique to like create emotion and then change the programming. So we do it for healing. I do it for healing because once the emotion is there, the release is there, then the new information, the new way of being, the new way of feeling about themselves is readily accepted. And this is happening. And this is why doing your own work or doing that subconscious work and freeing yourself from triggers is a superpower. And this is why regression is so massive, because regression frees you from triggers. And so once you're not being triggered by an external person, stimuli, advertisement, etc., then you're not so easily manipulated. This is the same just in personal relationships, right? Like if you're being triggered in your personal relationships and then you're reacting in ways that you don't want to react, that can be gone. And that's like the beauty of this type of work, is that it's a superpower to just clean yourself out like that and not be triggered, or even notice that when you are triggered um that you still have autonomy. Like you can still come to the awareness that you got triggered, you got afraid, and then you started to believe something that wasn't necessarily true for you and didn't really align with your values. And like, this is awesome. This is where I love where the world's going right now, because it's just like more and more people becoming critical thinkers and not just taking things at face value, and like ultimately recognize when they're being hypnotized. So that's been a big theme of mine, even as a hypnotist, where I always talk about being the unhypnotist, because I'm really literally like not actually hypnotizing anyone. I mean, I'll use the space of hypnosis to unhypnotize, because nobody needs me brainwashing them. Like, they don't need me to tell them, oh, they're great, they're confident, they're going to feel good, they're not going to eat this, they're going to do this, because that is also like a surface technique. What I'm talking about is more like, okay, I can help them go into that space, which is very useful, because then they can get back to themselves, right? They can hear that voice that they've been ignoring. They can have insight and awareness to something immediately that shifts and changes, or open that door so that they can walk through that and no longer be a victim to the programming that they learned and in their environments and their situations and their events growing up. So I guess this just kind of keeps going back to regression, in that sense of like really being able to clear space. I did that in a session today, just working on that 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 integrating the parts of ourselves that we lost, that somehow we got hypnotized or convinced that we were a certain way or weren't a certain way, or were lovable or not lovable, or also just capable or strong or whatever it is, intelligent, beautiful. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's like none of that is what we need hypnosis for. It's like to let that fall away, to actually see that's not who I am. It's not true, these limiting things and thoughts and beliefs I took on about myself. And so, I mean, this is just a portion of the themes. One of the other themes today that I really loved, that keeps coming back, is like the self-care of the practitioner or the coach, and how in my opinion it's the path to success. Because again, if we're avoiding something that is really continuously being presented to us in our lives, and I am facing something like that myself, and I'll share more as time goes on and I feel like more comfortable to share. But it's like I don't get away with not doing my own work, and I believe like I created my whole career by doing my own work, because then I was able to hold space for other people. Like, I know what it's like to go into the subconscious, go into those fears, go into well, having to heal like two physical conditions, and having to heal trauma, and having to like really let go. And so where do I even go from there? It's just like there's so many themes that are kind of all one theme. That's like a beautiful part of the rising up of the love and the healing in the world right now. And that whole dark night of the soul, which is like a lot of my coaching is around that, working with people when they're really in times of transition. And it's the perfect time to do subconscious and super conscious work, because all the stuff is in your face. That's why events like divorce and the death of my dad were just such monumental transformational times for me, because it's the perfect time to do that deeper work. Because it could be the same as like if you're in a relationship or if you're being challenged in anything, it's the same. It's like those times are the best times to do deeper work, because the themes are basically, to just put it basically, all the shit that's coming up in your face is your door to freedom. And that's just it. It's the time. And I mean, I just feel like this is the time that we're living in. Like the whole world needs a subconscious shift, and it's happening. Like I said, I'm so proud of people for like thinking for themselves, and like staying true to like their own inner wisdom and their own intuition, because it'll never guide you wrong. It might it might lead you to challenging situations that you came here to learn and grow through, but it won't guide you wrong ever, right? There's a difference between listening to your intuition though and listening to your trigger. So thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me unpack that, because it's been such a day. Again, if you like this, if there's anything you want me to speak more to, I'll definitely be back. And share, like, subscribe if you got all the way to here. Amazing. I do still have to like share some stories, but I'm gonna just leave this for now. But I will in the coming time in the future share more about my near-death experience over Christmas, and some of what I went through in my on my healing journey, and more and more. I feel like I could just sit here and tell stories all day. So I'll definitely come back with some stories again. Thank you so much for being here. Ciao for now.